Welcome to this in-depth video essay on Gimai Seikatsu, an anime that takes a subtle, introspective approach to the step-sibling dynamic. Unlike other series in this genre that rely on drama or even scandal, Gimai Seikatsu explores the emotional complexity of its characters in a slow, reflective manner, building their relationship through quiet moments, inner thoughts, and careful pacing. Before we dive into the episode breakdowns and other notes I've gathered, I want to frame a few questions that guided my thoughts throughout the series. One of them is, how will Yuta and Saki's relationship evolve over time? Will their bond remain sibling-like, or will the romantic tension hinted at throughout the show become too much to bear? Will the anime's slow pacing be a strength, allowing for rich emotional development, or will it leave us viewers wishing for more dramatic turns? In this video, we will break down the key moments in each episode, explore the emotional themes at play, and reflect on how Days with My Stepsister handles the complex dynamics between Yuta and Saki Ayase. By the end, we will revisit these initial questions to see how the anime delivers on its potential. Episode 1 opens with a simple yet impactful premise. Yuta and Saki, now step-siblings, are living together for the first time. The episode immediately establishes a tone of quiet awkwardness, with both characters carefully navigating their new family dynamic. And one of the first things that stand out is the contrast between the characters' inner thoughts and their outward actions. We hear their monologues about suddenly having a stepbrother or stepsister and the hesitation that comes with trying to figure out how to act in such an unfamiliar situation. Yuta and Saki agree early on to respect each other's space and boundaries, which sets a foundation of cautious distance rather than immediate conflict. The room hall shot in this episode bears a striking resemblance to Domestic Girlfriend, another anime with a step sibling plot, right? But that's where the similarities end. Gimai Seikatsu avoids the chaos and melodrama of Domestic Girlfriend, opting instead for a slow, measured approach to emotional development. The emotional tone is set early with a calming, gentle OST that amplifies the nostalgia and reflection embedded in the series. This isn't a fast-paced drama filled with romantic chaos, instead it's a story about two people figuring out how to coexist, each carrying their own emotional baggage. And one of the most impressive aspects of this episode is how it uses small, mundane moments to reveal character dynamics. For example, when they discuss something as simple as shopping for groceries, there's a deeper subtext at play. It's not just about shopping, it's about relearning what it means to do something with family. For Yuta and Saki, everyday tasks become opportunities to tentatively explore a new kind of relationship, one marked by mutual respect but also uncertainty. This first episode sets the tone for what will be a long, emotionally rich journey. Unlike fast paced romantic comedies, Gimai Seikatsu doesn't rush through these moments, it lingers in the silence, in the awkward pauses, giving us time to connect with the characters. It's a style that might remind some viewers of other slow burn anime like Our Dating Story, but Gimai Seikatsu brings a layer of quiet reflection that feels almost meditative. At the end of the first episode, we start to get a sense that this won't be a typical step sibling relationship story. The anime is signaling that it's less interested in scandal and more focused on how two people can navigate their emotional worlds, even if that means treading carefully at first. And that wraps up episode 1. Let's move to episodes 2 and 3, where we begin to get a deeper look at Saki's emotional journey and more. In episodes 2 and 3, we start to see Gimai Seikatsu dive deeper into Saki's character. These episodes explore her background, revealing that she's a loner at school, surrounded by rumors that suggest she's working as a prostitute to make money. These rumors, though untrue, are reflective of how distant she is from her peers. While Yuta is generally more sociable, Saki isolates herself, preferring to remain emotionally detached from others. And we learn that this independence isn't just a personality quirk, it's something shaped by her upbringing. Growing up without a father and with a mother who works nights, Saki has had to rely on herself, and this explains her cold demeanor and her refusal to lean on others for help, even when it comes to basic things like friendship. What's fascinating here is how the anime presents Saki's independence as both as a strength and a weakness. On one hand, she's resilient and self-reliant, but on the other hand, her refusal to let others in becomes a barrier to emotional growth. Yuta, by contrast, is patient and willing to help, though he's still unsure of where he fits in Saki's world this early. These episodes subtly introduce the theme of emotional vulnerability, and Seki may seem like she has it all figured out, but beneath the surface, she's struggling. Her growing reliance on Yuta, whether she realizes it or not at this point, marks the beginning of her emotional journey. And it's in these small, quiet moments, like when they cook together or talk about studying, that we see the walls between them start to crumble finally. Seki's arc in these early episodes mirrors the emotional journeys we've seen in other anime, but Gimai Seikatsu takes a more introspective approach. There are no dramatic confessions or romantic outbursts here. Instead, the anime allows the Saki's feelings to slowly bubble to the surface, showing us how she begins to see Yuta as more than just a stepbrother. Her emotional vulnerability, once hidden behind her cold exterior, starts to reveal itself, especially in her interactions with Yuta. And now let's take a step back and reflect on what these episodes are really about. Independence versus emotional vulnerability. Uh, the slow pacing gives us time to watch as Saki's independence is challenged by her growing connection to Yuta. In many ways, these episodes set up the emotional stakes for the rest of the series and episodes. Now that we've established the foundation of Yuta and Saki's relationship, let's zoom out for a moment and reflect on the broader themes of characters, dynamics, and emotional growth in Gimai Seikatsu. At this stage, we've seen that both Yuta and Saki are emotionally guarded, though for different reasons. Saki's independence, shaped by her upbringing, becomes a barrier to her emotional vulnerability, while Yuta, though more emotionally open in this regard, is still unsure of his place in this new family dynamic, not just with Saki. The slow, deliberate pacing of the anime allows these dynamics to play out gradually, and we don't get the immediate answers or emotional breakthroughs, but we do get subtle shifts in their behavior. Saki, for example, begins to rely more on Yuta, even if she's hesitant to admit it to herself, and Yuta in turn becomes more protective of Saki, showing a kind of quiet affection that contrasts with her more withdrawn nature. And this slow burn approach to the character development may frustrate us viewers looking for the dramatic moments, but it's precisely this careful pacing that allows us to fully appreciate the emotional complexity of their relationship. Episode 4 of this anime brings us deeper into the evolving dynamic between Yuta and Saki. This episode takes a more introspective tone, especially with Yuta's monologue about what it means to have a step sibling. He reflects on how living with Saki at first felt like living with a stranger. However, as the weeks have passed, she's become more than just a stranger, though he's still unable to define exactly what their relationship is. One of the standout moments in this episode is the tutoring scene. Saki, who struggles with literature, asks Yuta for help, and during their tutoring session, there is a moment where Yuta bluntly points out her weakness, and Saki, surprisingly, opens up about how that critique hit her more deeply than she expected. So Yuta apologizes and softens his approach, and Seki in return forgives him. And this interaction marks a shift in their relationship, a moment where emotional honesty starts to replace the earlier awkwardness. A key theme in this episode is emotional communication, or rather, the lack of it. Seki is incredibly blunt. She can't read between the lines and struggles to understand other people's emotions. And in contrast, Yuta is more sensitive and thoughtful, often internalizing his feelings rather than expressing them. And this episode highlights how their personalities clash in small but meaningful ways. There is a particularly interesting line from Saki where she says, "We have to compromise exactly because we can't understand each other's feelings." This statement feels like the thesis for their relationship. Both Yuta and Saki are figuring out how to live together without stepping on each other's emotional boundaries, and in doing so, they're slowly learning how to communicate, even if it's awkward at first. What makes this episode so impactful is how it captures the quiet moments of growth between Yuta and Saki. They're both learning how to be emotionally available for each other, but it's a slow, cautious process. Unlike other anime where relationships move quickly, this anime takes its time, showing us how these characters inch toward emotional intimacy. This episode also marks a turning point for Seki. By admitting her vulnerability, even in something as small as being hurt by a comment, she finally opens a part of herself that has been closed off. It's the beginning of her emotional journey, one that will continue to evolve as the anime progresses. In episode 5, the pacing slows down significantly as we shift focus to a subplot including Yuta and Shiori. Shiori invites Yuta to a movie, sparking a moment of introspection for both characters. While at first glance this episode seems like a filler, spending a lot of time on the movie within the anime, it actually serves a deeper purpose. Shiori, who has clearly developed some feelings for Yuta, tries to open up to him, even hinting at something significant by saying she has only 6 months left to live. And whether this is true or just a metaphor is unclear, but the moment is interrupted, leaving us and Yuta unsure of how to interpret it. Episode 5 felt slow, but it serves a key moment in setting up the emotional stakes for the second half of the series. Shiori's presence not only brings Yuta's feelings into question, but also forces Saki to confront the growing emotional connection that she has with Yuta. The slow pacing in this episode reflects the hesitation both characters feel, and they are still figuring out what they mean to each other, and the uncertainty lingers. While the pacing of this episode seems like a detour, I guess it actually does lay out some groundwork for the emotional conflict that soon happens after. Now that we have touched on the first 5 episodes, let's pause for a moment to reflect on one of the key themes that's starting to emerge: jealousy. In Gimai Seikatsu, jealousy isn't portrayed through dramatic outbursts, but instead through quiet, introspective moments where the characters are forced to confront their emotions. Saki's jealousy is subtle, almost hesitant. She doesn't come out and say it, but her body language and questions to Yuta reveal a deeper insecurity. She's realizing that her feelings for Yuta are more complicated than just sibling-like affection, and seeing him with Shiori, or knowing about it, forces her to question where she stands. This brings us to the idea of emotional vulnerability. Saki, who has always prided herself on being independent and emotionally distant, starts to feel something she can't control: jealousy. And this vulnerability makes her uncomfortable. It's reflected in how she interacts with Yuta, often masking her true feelings with offhand comments or casual questions. Yuta, on the other hand, is less emotionally aware. His actions show care and concern for Seki, but he's not fully aware of his own feelings. It's this contrast that makes their relationship so compelling. Seki's growing emotional awareness clashes with Yuta's quiet, almost oblivious affection. At this point in the series, the slow burn of their relationship begins to simmer. The jealousy, though subtle, is the first real sign that their bond is evolving into something more than just familial respect. Episodes 6 and 7 bring a shift in tone as the anime delves deeper into the emotional tension between Yuta and Saki. In episode 6, we see the first signs of emotional dependency when Yuta starts worrying about Saki during a heavy rainstorm. The scene is quiet but powerful. Yuta's mind constantly drifts to Saki, and he finds himself concerned for her well-being. There's a beautifully animated moment where Yuta goes outside to collect the clothes drying on the balcony, realizing just how intense the rain is. The soundtrack, featuring the recurring Forbidden Love OST, plays during the scene, enhancing the emotional weight of Yuta's growing concern for Seki. In these episodes, we see the evolving emotional dependency between Yuta and Saki. What was once an agreement to keep a respectful distance is now turning into something more complex. Yuta finds himself unable to focus at school, distracted by thoughts of Saki, and the rainstorm serves as a metaphor for the emotional storm brewing inside him. Seki, on the other hand, is beginning to journal her thoughts, reflecting on her feelings for Yuta. She struggles to name what she's feeling, but there's a clear shift. She's no longer able to keep Yuta at arm's length. Episodes highlight the growing tension between emotional independence and the desire for connection. For both characters, this emotional tension manifests in small, subtle ways. Yuta's protectiveness, Saki's introspection. It's clear that they are both starting to realize how important they are to each other, even if neither is ready to fully acknowledge it. Episode 7 in particular gives us a deeper look into Saki's internal world through her journaling. She starts to question her own feelings, wondering why she cares so much about what Yuta does and where he spends his time. This introspection leads to the realization that her feelings for him are no longer purely platonic, though she's still not ready to admit it fully. At this point in the series, we start to see a significant shift in the emotional landscape for both Yuta and Saki. What began as an awkward sibling-like relationship has transformed into something much more complicated. The theme of emotional realization takes center stage. Saki's introspection through her journaling reveals the inner conflicts she's facing. She's starting to feel more for Yuta, but she doesn't know how to handle those emotions. Her independence, once a source of strength, now becomes a barrier as she struggles to reconcile her growing affection for him. For Yuta, the emotional realization is less about introspection and more about action. His protectiveness and concern for Saki are his ways of expressing his feelings, even if he doesn't fully understand them yet. Unlike Saki, who is constantly reflecting on her emotions, Yuta is more reactive. His actions speak louder than his thoughts. These episodes mark the beginning of a shift from mutual respect to emotional interdependence. The question now becomes, will they acknowledge their feelings or will they continue to hide behind the pretense of sibling like affection? In the episode 8, the anime shifts back to the quiet, reflective tone that has come to define this series, Gimai Seikatsu. The episode begins with a seemingly simple moment. Saki oversleeps after a long night of studying, and Yuta offers to make her breakfast. It's a small gesture, but one that carries a lot of emotional weight. This is a turning point for Saki, as it marks her first time Yuta does something for her without hesitation, without any awkwardness. Yuta prepares her favorite meal, a detail that he likely picked up from his earlier conversation with Saki's mother. The new family OST begins to play during this scene, signaling yet another emotionally significant moment. As Saki takes a bite and her eyes light up, the anime lingers on the moment, allowing us to feel the emotional shift. This scene, though simple, encapsulates the quiet affection that has developed between Yuta and Saki. The breakfast scene serves as a metaphor for the emotional nourishment that Yuta and Saki provide for each other. What was once a relationship built on respect and distance has evolved into something warmer, more familiar. Saki, who has long struggled to accept help from others, allows herself to enjoy this small act of kindness. It's a subtle but powerful moment that shows how far they have come. After this, the episode takes a more lighthearted turn when Saki suggests that they go to the pool together. And this is an important shift, as Saki's stubbornness from earlier episodes has given way to a more open and relaxed dynamic with Yuta. However, beneath the surface, there is still tension. As they walk together, Saki casually mentions that she wouldn't mind if Yuta dated Shiori, an indirect way of testing his feelings. Yuta reassures her that nothing is happening with Shiori, but Saki's remarks reveal the jealousy that she's still grappling with. Episode 9, Stepsister and Diary, brings us closer to the emotional climax of the series. It's here that Saki, after an evening at the pool with Yuta, comes close to confessing her feelings. In a moment where the atmosphere is perfect, the fireworks in the background, the quiet night, Saki reflects on how much Yuta means to her. She appreciates him not only for his kindness but for his consistency, his quiet way of taking care of her without trying to stand out. But instead of confessing, she calls him Big Brother, catching Yuta off guard. This moment is critical, as it shows that Saki is still hesitant to fully embrace her feelings for Yuta. She's torn between seeing him as a brother and acknowledging the romantic feelings she's been developing. The episode ends on a bittersweet note as Saki cuts her hair short and throws away the key to the diary where she has been keeping her inner thoughts locked away. The act of cutting her hair and throwing away the key is deeply symbolic. It represents Saki's decision to lock away her growing romantic feelings and live with Yuta as a brother, not a lover. But the emotional weight of this decision is clear. Saki is not ready to fully confront her feelings, and so she chooses to suppress them for the sake of maintaining the familiar dynamic. This episode is a powerful exploration of emotional repression. Saki's decision to bury her feelings is a response to the overwhelming emotions she's experiencing, emotions that she doesn't yet know how to handle. By throwing away the key to her diary, she's trying to lock away those feelings, but the emotional impact is clear. She can't fully escape what she feels for Yuta, and this repression will likely create more tension in the episodes to come. For Yuta, this moment is equally significant. He realizes during this episode that his feelings for Saki are not purely brotherly, but just as Saki struggles to admit her feelings, Yuta finds himself caught in the same emotional turmoil. Their bond is becoming more complicated, and the path forward is certainly uncertain. In episode 10, we shift perspectives for the first time in a while. Instead of focusing on Saki's internal thoughts through her diary, we get more of Yuta's perspective. This change is subtle but important. It shows how the anime is deliberately alternating between the characters' emotional journeys. This episode explores the theme of regret. Saki prepares dinner for Yuta and leaves him a note, reflecting on the emotional distance she feels she's put between them. She wonders if she's making things harder by keeping her feelings to herself, but at the same time, she's unsure of how to express them. Yuta, meanwhile, is similarly conflicted. Though he's now more aware of his feelings for Seki, he doesn't know how to move forward. The title of this episode, Relations and Regrets, highlights the emotional crossroads that both characters are facing. There is a sense of hesitation, as if they're both afraid of what will happen if they fully embrace their feelings. The theme of regret becomes a central focus. Saki regrets keeping her distance, and Yuta wonders if he's been too passive in dealing with his emotions. It's also interesting to note how the anime contrasts the internal emotional struggles with external events. For example, the note that Saki leaves for Yuta is a small gesture, but it carries a lot of emotional weight. Saki is trying to bridge the gap between them, but she's still holding back. Similarly, Yuta's actions, though well meaning, often fall short of fully addressing the emotional tension between them. This episode leaves us with a lingering sense of uncertainty. For both characters, Saki and Yuta are aware of their feelings, but neither is ready to act on them. It's a moment of emotional limbo, where they are stuck between acknowledging their emotions and acting on them. The pacing of this episode is deliberate, allowing us to sit with their indecision and feel the weight of their internal conflicts. In the final two episodes, the emotional climax of Gimai Seikatsu finally arrives. Episode 11 begins with a parent-teacher meeting where Yuta and Saki discuss their futures with their respective teachers, and this episode serves as a calm before the storm, where the characters go through the emotions of daily life while grappling with their unresolved feelings. Saki's mother, as always, praises Yuta for being a good influence on Saki, and this adds another layer of complexity to the situation. Saki is not only grappling with her feelings for Yuta, but also the expectations of her mother and the social norms that tell her this relationship shouldn't happen. Episode 11 introduces a new character, Naori, a college teacher who specializes in family dynamics. When Saki meets Naori, the teacher tells her that her feelings for Yuta are not unusual, given that they are step siblings and not blood related. This conversation opens up the possibility that Saki's feelings are valid and that there is no inherent wrongness in them. On Yuta's side, we see his interactions with Kaho, who subtly pushes him to confront his feelings for Saki. Kaho, who has her own complicated family history, sees right through Yuta and understands his emotional turmoil. She encourages him to stop bottling up his feelings, warning him that if he doesn't deal with them, he'll end up scarred for life. And then we come to episode 12, Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This episode brings everything to a head. Saki finally confronts her feelings for Yuta after being asked out by another guy. She realizes in that moment that she can't see anyone else in the same way she sees Yuta. Meanwhile, Yuta is out with Kaho, who once again nudges him towards self-reflection. The emotional climax occurs when Yuta returns home and he and Saki finally have a heart-to-heart. Yuta confesses his feelings for Saki, telling her that he doesn't see her as just a sister. Saki, overwhelmed by emotions, tries to play it off at first, but ultimately admits that she feels the same way. They embrace, both unsure of what the future holds, but willing to face it together. The final scene of the series is bittersweet. Yuta and Saki agree to keep their relationship as siblings in front of others, not wanting to upset their parents or cause scandal. This compromise, while understandable, leaves a sense of lingering tension. There is still so much left unsaid, so much emotional territory left unexplored. The recurring Forbidden Love OST plays during this final scene, adding to the emotional weight of their conversation. It's a reminder that while they've come to terms with their feelings, they're still bound by the expectations of those around them. The title of the episode, Tomorrow and Tomorrow, hints at the uncertainty of their future. The ending of Gimai Seikatsu is both satisfying and frustrating. On the one hand, Yuta and Saki finally confess their feelings for each other, breaking through the emotional barriers that have been building throughout the series. On the other hand, the compromise they reach to maintain the appearance of siblings feels incomplete, as if there is still more to their story that needs to be told. The emotional climax is powerful but leaves us viewers with a sense of unresolved tension. Will they be able to navigate this new, complicated relationship? Will they continue to suppress their feelings for the sake of family harmony? These are the questions that linger as the credits roll. As we reflect on Gimai Seikatsu as a whole, it's clear that the anime succeeds in delivering a slow, introspective take on the step-sibling relationship. By focusing on the emotional journeys of Yuta and Saki, the series avoids the melodrama and scandal of similar anime, instead offering a more nuanced and thoughtful exploration of love, family, and emotional growth. In the end, Gimai Seikatsu answers some of the questions we posed at the beginning of this video essay. Yuta and Saki's relationship does evolve into something more than sibling-like affection, but the series leaves enough ambiguity to keep us wondering about their future. The slow pacing, while frustrating at times, ultimately allows for deep emotional resonance, giving each character the space to grow and evolve. If there is one takeaway from Gimai Seikatsu, it's that emotional intimacy takes time. Yuta and Saki's journey is far from over, and while the series doesn't provide all the answers, it leaves us with the hope that they'll continue to navigate their feelings together. So I thank you for joining me in this deep dive into Gimai Seikatsu. I hope this analysis has helped you appreciate the emotional depth and subtle storytelling of this series. Definitely stay tuned for more anime breakdowns. I have a lot of animes planned, right? We have Oshinoko Season 2. We have Alia Hides Her Feelings. I will do Love is Indivisible by Twins. I'm thinking if I've left anything else out. I've dropped Nier Automata. If you watched the news video I did last time, I thought that I would give it a shot. Well, I really didn't. I really couldn't force myself to continue watching. I just didn't enjoy it. So I've dropped that. And I think that's all, honestly. Maybe something else. If something else is there, I'm gonna let you know in the next video essay. So until next time, stay tuned. Keep watching anime, keep enjoying all the new pieces. I'm really excited for the new season. Have a nice rest of your day and week. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.